Welcome back to This Week in Film. This is definitely the first time we're doing this today, and I'm Nick Panuzzo, joined as always by Midwest Matt Lauer. Matt, how's it going?
Well, Nick, it's been a long week and it's Monday. It's good enough, though. How are you?
I'm good. This is the weekly podcast where we get together, talk about the movies we've seen over the past week, and I've seen one movie, and something tells me you've seen two.
Correct, you are.
All
what
right.
did you see, Nick?
I saw the movie Mortal Engines. Yeah. And what did you see?
I saw Ocean's 8 and Lego Movie 2.
Okay. Let's, why don't we start with the Lego Movie? But before that, I guess we're going to do an abbreviated preview corner.
Yeah, you got a half a corner here. Because I've talked about most of these. So we got Ugly Dolls.
Oh, wait, let me interrupt you. Preview corner brought to you by the Big Ticket. Okay, go ahead.
The Big Ticket. Yeah, Ugly Dolls looks annoying. The message seems to be love your flaws, but it looks pretty insincere. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not going to see it. So that's that. Marissa Tomei is hot, a.k.a. Spider-Man 2. Or Spider-Man... What is it? The last one was Homecoming. What's this one?
Far From Home.
See, I've seen the preview 7 times now, so I don't even know the subtitle. And I still like the Mary Jane character. She's the only part of the preview that, I don't know, did anything at all. Her being a smartass towards Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Watching the preview, I feel like there's a giant water guy that looks kind of like Sandman from the 3rd original Spider-Man movies, and that's not an association I want. But, you know, hopefully there's some story to go along with all this stuff, so I'll still be seeing it. And saw another preview for Shazam, and I got nothing to say about that new. Nothing new to say about Pokemon, so there's that.
Right.
And then Toy Story 4. I saw a preview for Toy Story 4, which with all the movies coming out that I've seen previews for that remind me of Toy Story, seeing a preview for Toy Story 4, I was like, oh, all right, cool. And it didn't do anything. Like, it didn't show anything. It was just the characters kind of dancing by the screen, doing nothing. Like, there are no lines. There's nothing about the movie itself. So, yeah, it didn't, I don't know. It'll probably be great. But so far, the previews aren't really showing anything.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I saw another preview for The Secret Life of Cats and Dogs, or Secret Life of Pets, or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, instead of just some rabbit doing whatever it was doing in that preview we saw, it was a cat training a dog to be a cat. And much to my surprise, some of the jokes were kind of funny.
Oh, okay.
Not saying I'm going to be going to see it, but you know. But that was that. Then I saw a preview for another preview for a movie I saw a preview for a while back, Wonder Park, where a kid has an imaginary theme park, because that's normal, and it becomes real, and then there are lots of, I think these are supposed to be jokes, but none of them were very funny, so I would say don't bother with that one.
So it's like a kid has an imaginary theme park, like in his backyard, or
like in her mind, she has a theme park, I think, in her bedroom, and she imagines it into existence. I don't know. It like I said, it looks like another kind of Toy Story ripoff. But then once she's in the Wonder Park world, once it comes to life, or she gets sucked in, or she gets, I don't know, has hallucinations or whatever, however it's happening, there are a lot of characters that seem very annoying, and like, looks like one of those things where it thinks it's funny and it's just not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then after that, I saw another preview for How to Train Your Dragon 3. And well, I was seeing Lego Movie 2 in 3D, and this trailer for Dragons 3 included a little clip that I hadn't seen in the other trailers, and it looked really, really good in 3D, and the colors were really nice. So, I don't know, and my girlfriend was with me to see, what did we see? Lego Movie 2. And apparently she really enjoyed both the first and the second one, so I think it's predetermined I'll be going to the theater to see that one. But actually, I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, the first two movies, they're solid movies. They're pretty good.
I enjoyed the first one, but I hadn't seen the second one. I guess he must lose his leg in the second one, right?
I really don't remember.
Nah.
They're good movies, but not very memorable.
Fair enough. Yeah, so that's Preview Corner. That was it.
Okay, great.
Sorry, big ticket. I know that wasn't super exciting, but at least you didn't have to sit through the entire half hour of it.
Right. All right. So you saw the Lego Movie 2, the second part.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it is? The second part,
or is it?
I think you're right. It's not the second one. It's the second part. Yeah. So, if you're fact checking over there,
yes, the second part. Yeah, my silence was the sound of the internet loading.
Right. Yeah. So I really enjoyed the Lego Movie, the first part. In spite of having kind of waited a long time to see it, I saw it on Netflix or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this one did not make me laugh nearly as much. The plot with this is there's a more obvious kind of framing story to it than the first one. I think in the first one you kind of get the real world stuff just at the end.
Yeah.
This movie picks up right where the last one left off. And so like the framing story is like, oh, now that the dad and the son play together, they're going to have to let the sister play too. And so that's kind of where things start off, because I think that's where the first movie ended, where he's like, oh, we're going to let your sister come down too. And it's like, oh, no. So it picks up there and then gets into the Lego world story, which is that there are kind of invading creatures and the world that as you knew it with Emmett and, dang it, I always forget her name. I want to call her Sidewinder. Wild Style. There we go. Like their world is becoming an apocalyptic world, and it's dark and gritty and
like a Mad Max kind of place. Exactly.
And Wild Style fits in just fine, and Emmett still kind of stands out like a sore thumb. And then some of these invading creatures steal Wild Style and some of the other characters, and Emmett's on a mission to save them. And along the way, he runs into Rex, this other character played by Chris Pratt, and it's not very good. It's not nearly as fun. The music's really not as funny, and the humor's it's just not the same. It's kind of like one of those. It's a very sequel-y. It's got the feel of kind of a letdown sequel, but it does start to pick up about 45 minutes in, which is probably like half the movie. But the jokes kind of start to land then. Most of the jokes up to that point are very like there's a banana that slips on itself a lot. And that's the joke a lot.
That he does what?
5 times. The banana slips on himself. Like he slips and falls. You would on a banana peel. Yeah. Yeah, the jokes aren't that great until about 45 minutes in. Mm-hmm. And the songs, one of the characters, which you do see, I think, in the preview, this thing that can reshape itself a lot. And it's a bunch of purple and pink colors. It does some sort of kind of jazzy R&B, maybe rap kind of songs. and they're just not very funny. Some of the reactions to it are a bit funny, so it's not completely flavorless. But it's really about 45 minutes or halfway through the movie that the jokes actually start to land. And then there are a couple songs that end up being pretty funny. Like there's one song towards the very end that's actually really, really funny. And the Raptors, because you see them in the preview that like the second Chris Pratt voiced character Rex has trained Raptors. They play more of a part than you would expect, and they've got like subtitles and stuff, so they end up being kind of a funnier part of the movie. But I actually found the framing story, which I won't really get into more detail, but I found it to be the stronger point of the movie, which really surprised me. I think the first time around it was all Lego World stuff that was fun, and here it was the framing story that was a little stronger.
And what's the framing story? The brother and the sister?
Yeah, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But the humor, the jokes that were in there, like the banana peel stuff, it's all very like kid humor. But the adult humor, which I think the first movie had in very good balance, starts to kick in a bit more towards the end. And in that funny song, the one that's actually funny, there's like some really adult stuff where I'm like, not adult in terms of like, like sexy or dirty minded, but like just like existential crap. And it's really funny at that moment. So I'd say there are some new characters that are, or at least one new character that's a bit more interesting than some of the other ones, and it doesn't get enough attention. So I can't say I really recommend going to the theater for this one. I'd say wait till it's coming out on streaming service or to rent.
Yeah.
And there's not much more I could say about it without like spoiling stuff, but I'm not sure there's that much more to say about it really. Unless you have any questions that you're trying to figure out whether to see it or not.
Everything you're kind of saying kind of reminds me of the Lego Batman movie, where it was just kind of okay. I feel like the Lego Batman movie thought it was a better movie than it was.
I'll agree with that. And
it's not bad, but it's not like really good. Like I feel like the first Lego movie, the first one with Chris Pratt and all, was kind of lightning in a bottle kind of situation.
Yeah.
And I was real excited to see the Lego Batman movie, and then when I watched it, I was like, I'm okay. And maybe I'm not the target audience for it. Like I guess it's for kids for the most part, because my son seemed to really enjoy it. But like the first Lego movie, I feel like was aimed not so much at kids, but at a more mature audience.
Yeah.
And not mature in like you said, for how sexy the movie was, but for how like meta the jokes were and things like that. And I feel like they this movie's going to be tough to measure up to that. The end.
Yeah, well, I would agree with some of the things you said about the Batman movie. I think it thought it was better than it was. But I enjoyed it for the most part. I'd say that was probably like maybe a B for me. Maybe B minus. This one is C minus territory. Like,
wow,
I did
really?
not enjoy this nearly as much as I walked out a little happier than I thought I would be, because it did get better as it went. But now that I've had a day away from it and can look back on, take the whole movie in, I'm like, yeah, I liked the Batman movie a lot more than this one.
Oh, okay.
It had a lot less to offer.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that's that. So not really a recommend, although I think if you do have young kids with you and you're just looking to let them enjoy something, you're probably fine. But that's it for the Lego Movie Part 2. Nick, how was Mortal Engines?
Oh, Mortal Engines. Well, maybe we should save Mortal Engines for the end because I don't think you're gonna want to see it, and and so I'm planning on spoiling it, unless you were planning on seeing it.
Oh no, not at all.
No, okay, then why don't we save that? Why don't we save that for the end because I'll spoil the hell out of it. And I do plan on seeing Ocean's 8 at some point. So, would you mind going into that?
Oh. Okay, yeah, I can go into that and I can try not to spoil anything for you.
Okay.
This movie, much like the Lego Movie 2, was quite a disappointment. This movie bored the heck out of me. Like, it was boring until the last 40 minutes of the movie. Nobody in this movie seems to be having fun. Like, all the kind of energy that you get from the original Ocean's 11. And I'm sorry to compare it. I mean, I think that's kind of inevitable. And there are tons of references.
I think you have to compare it. I mean, it's a prequel, right?
Yeah. No, it's a. So here's the plot. Danny Ocean is dead.
What?
And he has a sister who's alive. Oh yeah.
This is a sequel,
and he has a sister. Yeah.
What?
This is Ocean's 8, where Sandra Bullock is the main character.
Yeah, I figured it was
that's. No.
Oh my God.
She's his sister. And he's dead, and the movie's going to remind you of that like 10 times in the first few minutes, and then like 4 more times throughout the movie. Like, hey, don't forget that other movie. It's kind of like watching The Hobbit after seeing the Lord of the Rings movies, where it's just every now and again, it's like, hey, don't forget, we made good movies once. And yeah, it's not terrible. I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but like the whole time I was just kind of waiting for it to be over, which was a shame because I was going into it looking forward to having kind of an Ocean's 11 feel. I was just hoping it would be better than Ocean's 12 and Ocean's 13. At the end of the day, I'll say it is better than Ocean's 12. It's probably not as good as Ocean's 13. But the biggest problem with this movie is just that no one seems to give a crap that they're in it. It's just not, there's no fun. It's like someone took a basic idea of an ocean movie and then sucked out all the life. And even when it comes to like the quirky stuff they're doing, like all the tricks and bells and whistles to make the heist happen. And in this movie, they're trying to steal jewelry. They're trying to steal this really expensive necklace. And they're doing that by trying to arrange for an actress to wear it to, I don't even remember what it was. A fashion show or something? A dinner?
Is it the actress
the Emmys,
Julia Roberts?
The Oscars? I don't know. No, it's an actress played by Anne Hathaway. And yeah, I mean, that's probably the one reason that it's not as bad as Ocean's 12 is because there's no stupid meta thing.
There's no weird Bruce Willis
except for that they keep... No. Although they do throw a bunch of famous people into it at this event, and they're like references to names. But it just seems like a cheap version of an Ocean's movie. Like, like some of those movies where when Transformers is coming out, there's like Transmorphers,
right,
from some other company that just wants to get it on the shelf and have it look the same. Yeah. This feels like that. And I mean,
did Steven Soderbergh direct it?
I don't know, and I don't care. He did the first one, right?
He did the first 3.
He did all 3 of them?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then he might have. I was going to say, if he did the first one, it couldn't have been by him because it's so much worse. But if he did all 3, I guess it could have been.
No, it was a guy named Gary Ross.
Okay. Well, so yeah, Sandra Bullock barely looks towards the camera. You barely get to see her face. And she interacts with Cate Blanchett more than anybody else. but both of them are just kind of preoccupied with seeming tough. And that's kind of how the movie feels. It's just trying to show, maybe it's because the cast is all women and they're trying to emphasize that they're tough. But I think they could have been fun and tough at the same time. And it's just really not there. They seem like people who are like, yep, we're on the same side because we're here to get our paycheck for being in this movie, more than the characters are actually with each other. I feel like the movie doesn't trust these women to carry itself and to seem strong while also having a good time. So instead, there's no good time and it's just them acting tough. And it really takes away from enjoyment. Like there's just, and the toughness isn't really necessary or helpful anyway. But the one character who has some fun is played by Awkwafina. And my understanding is that she was a musician turned
Isn't Awkwafina
rapper
water?
Turned. Yes, that's also the name of water, but this is spelled very differently.
Okay.
It's spelled more like if you were to take the word awkward and turn it into Awkwafina. Okay. And she's actually, she doesn't get enough time on screen for me to say she's really great. But with the little bit that they give her, it feels that way. It feels like it could have been a lot more fun if they had emphasized her more. And I don't have a lot more to say about this movie, really. It was kind of a letdown and kind of a long slog. So, once you see it, we can spoil it a bit, but I'll be curious to see how you enjoy it.
Yeah, well, that's not making me want to see it anymore. It's like one of those movies that I keep seeing, and I go, I don't feel like being disappointed today. and like I love that first Ocean's 11 movie, and then like the other two are just not very good. Like I know Ocean's 13 is better than Ocean's 12, but it's still not a good movie. But that first one is just so cool.
Yeah, the first one's like a great balance of fun and like plotting and planning and like intricacies and charm and humor. And that's just so much of that's taken out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
So you weren't feeling like getting disappointed and you watched Mortal Engines instead, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I watched Mortal Engines, which was not very good. It's a movie that takes place in like the post-apocalyptics, which is a neighborhood, and it takes place in like the distant future, like I guess like 1,000 years into the future or something, and it's after mankind in the 21st century or the 22nd century creates this weapon that is so powerful that it like not only destroys most of the world, but it like shifts the tectonic plates of the planet to like realign how the world looks. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and the movie doesn't really take the time to explain anything to you. Like the first half, and so like the movie lives in this post-apocalyptic world, and so there's two different societies. There's a society of people that live on these like mobile cities. Like the main city that you're on is called London, and it's like a giant city with tank tracks underneath it. And the city survives by basically eating other cities, other mobile cities. Like people on the left side of the world live in these mobile cities, and people on the right side of the world, and I mean like literally like the west and the east.
Yeah.
And the people in the east live in these stationary cities, but they're protected by this giant wall, this giant steel wall that keeps the mobile cities out. So on the left side of the world, the mobile cities survive by eating each other. Like the movie starts with London basically devouring this smaller city, and it basically absorbs all of its resources by like it swallows the city, and then it like the city's not alive, which I feel like I'm making a little confusing. But so the city like London swallows the smaller city, Christ, and it absorbs its people. The people then become part of the London society, and then they strip the old city for parts. And it's called what is it? Municipal Darwinism or something like that. Can
I ask you a question?
Please.
Okay, so I got two questions, I guess. One's about the city and how it eats things. So I guess I'll start there. Does it like just roll right over it and then kind of pause, basically, and people jump down and take resources and pull them back up to it?
Basically, like the city like opens its drawbridge kind of a thing, and it like rolls, and like the smaller city gets kind of like pulled into it with like harpoon cables.
Oh, they actually just lift the whole city right up into it. Kind
of, yeah. Like they
okay.
Like a big gate drops down in front of it, and then it gets pulled into the larger city.
Okay. So it's like a mechanical version of a tractor beam.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Now my second question is, when it comes to these cities, like you said, it's called London.
Yes.
Is that because the city London was turned into this giant machine thing, or is it just arbitrarily named London? Like, hey, that was the name of a city. So
I think the latter is correct. I think they just call it London, but because it's London, it's full of English people, which doesn't make any sense. Like all the people in London have English accents, so that part doesn't make sense. Also, in the distant future, everyone still has their local accents. Like London is this mobile town that swallows all kinds of cultures and civilizations, but everyone there speaks with an English accent. And then in the East is still like Asia. So, and then like there's like a Nordic guy who's like, like Nordic. And then there's this other guy who's American, like there's Americans too. So the movie doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then I didn't know anything about this movie kind of going into it. Like I saw the trailer for it and wasn't very impressed. And I was like, I don't really want to watch this, but I felt like it was watching this or Overlord, and my wife didn't want to watch World War II zombies, which was disappointing. And so maybe I'll see that this week, because I've heard good things about that movie.
I've heard mixed things, but the good ones have made it sound appealing enough that I'll be watching it at some point too. Maybe I'll get into it this week too.
Yeah. But this movie has the feel of, like, while you're watching it, you're like, I bet this is a young adult book. And it is. It's based on some young adult book series, and you're like, oh, well, now it makes sense why all the characters are young and beautiful. But also Hugo Weaving is in it, and spoiler alert for this movie, because now I'm going to start ruining it. Hugo Weaving plays like the architect of the place, like he's in charge of like keeping the city going, and London going, yeah. And turns out he's the bad guy, and like the main.
Is that supposed to be a surprise?
A little bit, but they kind of like spoil.
No shit.
In the beginning.
You could tell that from the previews.
Well, like I didn't know it, and then like the movie starts off. There's like this girl. There's a girl who's wearing a bandana over her face, like her lower half of her face, and she like gets absorbed into London. Like this first town that gets swallowed she gets absorbed into London, and this is all part of her plan to assassinate Hugo Weaving. Because, long story short, Hugo Weaving murdered her mother.
Her mom, yeah. And gave her a scar, right?
Yeah. Is that all in the trailer?
Yeah.
Man, that's all very important to the story. So, like, this girl's face, she has, like, this slight... I mean, it's a pretty gruesome scar across, like, her lower face. But, like, I imagine in the book that the scar or her disfigurement must be so much more pronounced, because the way like all the characters in the movie act towards her, it's like she's the way that characters act. Like at one point she gets they get sold as slaves, or they're in like a slave, like what do you call it when you sell slaves? Like an auction?
Trade?
Yeah, like they get absorbed into, and they're going to get sold as slaves. And this one guy refers to her as like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he says like she's like totally mangled, and she'll look better when the guy she's being sold to turns her into sausage. And I'm like, she just has like a little scar. Like, I mean, it's a big scar, but it's not like horribly disfiguring. Like, all the characters in this movie act like she looks like Dr. Poison from Wonder Woman. Like, you know how,
well, you know what, there was another movie that I think some sort of young adult thing too, that came out somewhere within like the last year or so, wherein the female character was supposed to be like rejected by society and stuff, and the main male character anyway, is like, I think you're beautiful just like you are. But like the actress is gorgeous, and it's just like a bit of a birthmark. It's like nothing that would make it make her unattractive at all.
Yeah.
And it sounds like kind of a similar thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the main actress, like she's like this beautiful girl, and you're like, oh, she just has like a nasty scar. It looks kind of cool, and she wears this red bandana that looks kind of cool. And she basically, the other main character in the movie is this English version of Justin Long, and they go on this adventure together. And so the English version of Justin Long is trying to, after she tries to assassinate Hugo Weaving, he chases her down, and she says, Hugo Weaving's the bad guy. Ask him why he murdered my mom. And he's like, okay, well, I think he's a great guy, but see you later. And she falls down this pit, and then Hugo Weaving comes around the corner, and he's like, oh, great job, Tom. It's a shame she got away. And he's like, and Tom says, yeah, she was saying some crazy stuff. And Hugo Weaving's like, oh, what did she say? And he's like, oh, like you murdered her mom or some ridiculous stuff like that. And Hugo Weaving's like, oh, it's a shame she said that. And he kicks him down the same tunnel, like that ejects him out of the city. And Hugo Weaving's daughter comes around the corner right after this, and he's like, oh yeah, your buddy Tom, he fell down the pit. It's a shame. And then in the distance is this other character who's in the movie for 5 minutes, who like witnesses the whole thing. And he's the key to getting the daughter. Oh, this daughter character is so misused. Like, this movie's so bad. It doesn't.
It sounds extremely convoluted.
It's really convoluted, and it definitely is the kind of movie where, like, while you're watching it, you're like, I bet this is better explained in the book, or this makes more sense after you've read the book. And I thought that this movie was directed by Peter Jackson, and it's not. He's just a producer on it. Like, I guess it's his film company that made it. It was directed by Christian Rivers, and it looks great. Like, it looks terrific for the most part. There's some of the scenes you can tell they're like standing in front of a green screen with just CGI background and stuff.
Yeah. And
there's like a lot of sequences where the main characters are running while all this CGI damage is flying around them, like much like in Bumblebee, where like the main character's running past the robots that are smashing everything around her, but she's not impacted by anything. She's just like running past all the stuff. And so there's a lot of that in this movie, which I think just always looks bad anymore. Like, I'm not really impressed by CGI anymore, but like the mobile city in this movie looks really cool. I wish there was more explanation about what was actually going on in this, like with this world. Like the movie gives you so much exposition at the beginning, and then it just kind of doesn't explain anything, though. Like, you're like,
it doesn't really know how to actually establish the world very well.
Yeah, and in a movie like this, like you need that fish out of water character who's like
sort of a foil to kind of get that information to you.
Yeah, like you're like the guy who's supposed to be you. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this doesn't have that. I mean, it tries a little bit, but it just doesn't do it. And the first half hour, they just give you so much information, but it's like worthless. You don't don't understand anything that's going on. And again, it probably makes sense if you read the book, but I haven't, and I'm not going to. And it's just, the movie just goes on and on. Like an hour and a half into it, you're like, how much can be left? And you're like, oh my God, there's still a half hour left. And there's like a great big battle at the end. And so the whole plot of the movie is Hugo Weaving is going to attack the anti-tractionists. And those are the people who live in the cities that aren't mobile. And his reasoning is because there's not enough mobile cities to devour anymore. So we have to go after the cities that don't move. And I feel like that's the entire plot, is that our way of life is ending. Let's continue our way of life.
Oh God.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't really work. But I will say, like, there's a super weapon. They're able to recreate the super weapon that destroyed mankind, and that looks pretty cool when they use it. They do use the super weapon, and that looked really neat. That was a cool effect. I know I just said I'm not really impressed by CGI stuff, but that looked really neat. And they use it a couple of times, and I'm like, okay. But like once they use it once, you're like, okay, that was devastating. Why would you need to shoot something like that again? And so then they use it like 2 or 3 more times. But yeah, not a good movie. Not good at all. Did not care for it.
Sounds exhausting.
It was exhausting. The last half hour of it is probably the best part. Like when I looked at my watch or the clock, I don't have a watch. I looked at the clock and I was like, there's a half hour left. And then the last half hour started. I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun here. There's like an aerial battle, which is kind of fun, even though it doesn't make any sense. They introduced this Asian character named, oh God, I want to say Wingfoot.
It's a woman, right?
Yeah. And
I was going to ask about her because in the previews, she was awful.
Yeah.
Like she had those worst lines, like, you know, the whole like forget everything you think you know kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh God.
Yeah. It's even worse watching it because they don't do any explanation of her character. Like the movie starts off with the main character, Tom, going around and he sees like a TV screen that has her picture on it. And he's like, oh, that woman is still on the loose. And she's like wanted.
Is she basically Morpheus?
You think that she's going to be like Morpheus, but she's not. Basically, when she shows up in the scene when they're being sold as slaves, she shows up for no reason and says, I'll buy her and her friend. And they're like, no, we're not going to sell her. You're wanted. You're worth more dead than alive. And she goes, well, I guess we're going to have to fight then. And for no reason, she just starts fighting everyone. And she's got like a spike that comes out of the back of her foot, which is kind of cool that she uses to stab somebody in the head.
The back of her foot?
Her boot.
Yeah, but that seems like the most inconvenient place to put a weapon you need to use to attack people.
Yeah, but she uses it pretty effectively, even though it's dumb.
Okay.
and there's like and then she like rescues the main girl whose name is Hester Shaw. And that reminds me of my favorite character of the movie, who I will get to in a second. But I can't believe I haven't mentioned him yet. So like, and so she rescues her.
The main character's name is Hester?
The main character's name is Hester, yeah.
That is interesting.
With just an H, not Chester, just Hester.
No, Hester.
Yeah.
That's such an unusual name for a young protagonist these days.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be like a future name kind of a thing, except that the other main character's name is Tom. Like, like you like have a Game of Thrones name like Eddard, you know, like, but nope. The other guy's name is Tom. And then the Asian lady, her name is Anna Fang. And so anyway, so she rescues the main character, and the main character's like, why did you save me? And she's like, oh, I knew your mom. She's like, it's just like, Oh, great. And her mom's name is Pandora. And guess what Pandora has?
A box.
That's right. She's got a box, which is what Hugo Weaving stole from her when he murdered her. And then spoiler alert, Hugo Weaving is Hester Shaw's father. That's just thrown in at the very end of the movie before she has him killed.
Man, I'm so surprised.
Yeah, it's bad. But that brings me to my favorite character of the movie.
Favorite character?
Yeah. It's this half man, half machine called Shrike or Shriek. I can't remember how they pronounced it. And it says it's played by Stephen Lang. But are you familiar with the Superman villain Metallo?
No, I guess I know the name, but I can't picture it right
he's
now.
He's like a cyborg that has like a kryptonite power chest. Like it's his power supply.
I gotcha. Yeah.
This guy, like the design that they did for this character would be a perfect Metallo if they ever did that in a Superman movie. Like he looks so cool, and he's a bad guy, and he's terrifying, and he's called a resurrected man. I guess there was like a whole group of people called the Resurrected Men, and they're like dead people who have been rebuilt as cyborgs. They have like their memories wiped, and they're like super strong, and they're half robot, half man, and he looks terrifying. And when we're introduced to him, all he does is keep screaming Hester Shaw, and it's just him going, Hester Shaw. And he's saying it over and over again. He's like locked in this steel cage, and Hugo Weaving goes up to him and he's like, why do you want Hester Shaw? And he's like, she broke a promise. And Hugo Weaving's like, all right, well, we got to free him from prison so he can go kill Hester Shaw. And so then he does, and this guy Shrike can move so fast, like Hugo Weaving blows up the prison that the robot man is in, and then while the prison is sinking, the robot is able to get to shore. Doesn't make any sense at all. And then the robot tracks down Hester Shaw, and the whole time he's just screaming Hester Shaw.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How many plots does this movie have?
This movie has no less than, I want to say, 7 plots.
Okay, because that's what it feels like.
It does.
Hearing you talk about it.
Like, there's the Hugo Weaving storyline. There's the Hugo Weaving daughter storyline. There's the storyline of the main character and the main guy character. There's the storyline of the Anna Fang character. And then there's like the subplot of her being in love with another guy. Like, this is a movie that feels like was supposed to be 3 hours long, but they had to chop it down to just over 2. And I'm sure it's
it kind of sounds like what you're saying, that it's based on an adult or a young adult novel, that like it probably, if they had faith that it was going to do well, they probably would have had it be a series of movies rather than. Oh yeah,
they totally set it. The very end of the movie is just like setting it up for the sequel, where they're like, I guess we're going to go explore the world, huh? And they're like, yep, I guess so. And it's bad. It's not a good movie. I do not recommend it, but check it out.
No.
Yeah, it's not good, but like that robot monster is great. he's really good, and he's only in the movie for like a short period of time. Like, when, spoiler alert again, when the robot monster dies, and you're like, oh man, he's dead, but he's the best part of this whole thing. It's a shame.
No,
and I looked up how much money the movie made, and the budget for the movie was like over $100 million, and it only made 80 million worldwide, which is
whoa,
yeah, that's
worldwide.
Yeah, that is not. It only made 15 million in the U.S.
Jesus, that is a bomb,
total bomb. And
wow,
yeah, it didn't deserve to do well. And I guess
no, it sounds like
the people who like wanted this movie, like the fans of the books, like I guess it's a 4-book series. I guess they didn't come out for it either. And the IMDb rating for it is 6.1 or 6.2, and that's not very good either.
No, because IMDb's giving people credit for crap.
Yeah. We almost watched the Robin Hood movie, the new Robin Hood movie.
Oh, no.
And I may watch that tonight.
You're going to have an equally disappointing experience. I'm
Did you
rather
see
confident.
No. I can't remember if you saw it or not. Yeah.
No. It just looked terrible.
That movie has a 5.3 rating on IMDb, so I'm excited to see what the difference is. But visually, visually, Mortal Engines was nice to look at, but like story-wise, just way too much going on. Way too much going on without anything being explained. So, yeah, check it out.
Well, at this point, having something be nice to look at, I'm like, that's not much of a selling point. Like stuff at this point just should look good.
Yeah, I would honestly say check it out. Like when it's on Netflix, fast forward it till you get to the monster, and then when the monster dies, you can turn it off. Unless you want to see the super weapon at the end, and then you can turn it off because you know what's going to happen.
Well, it sounds like I knew most of what was happening just from the preview.
Yeah, it does.
Which is weird, given that in the preview, I was like, I don't even know what this movie's about.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about that Alita Battle Angel movie. Like, I kind of know exactly what's going to happen from the preview. But I'm still interested in seeing that. Did that come out yet?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
I didn't even know that Lego movie was coming out. I didn't know it was out until you said you saw it. I was like, oh, man, I thought that didn't come out till this summer.
Yeah. Yeah, there have been a couple things that have popped up, and I've been surprised that they're coming out when they are. And there are other things that I thought have already come out and gone that haven't come out yet. So just look over Fandango, like stuff coming out in the next few months, and see what goes where.
How did your girlfriend feel about the Lego movie too?
The same as me.
Oh, it was just you?
Oh, no, she felt the same as me.
Oh, she felt okay.
Yeah, we walked out and we're pretty much like, well, we had the exact same experience there.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Go see other movies.
All right. Well, I think that's all I got to say about Mortal Engines.
All right, so I guess we got to place these movies on our
oh yeah, that's right. I forgot we have a whole segment
ranking list.
Let's see. Let me open up the appropriate list. Matt, on your movie ranking list, where are you going to put the Lego Movie 2?
I'm going to put that between Fantastic Beasts 2 and Blazing Saddles.
Better than Blazing Saddles in the number 17 spot. Lego.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you know what? No. Let me change that. Let me put that below Blazing Saddles.
Below Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
All right. Lego Movie 2 in the number 18 spot. Lego Movie 2, the second part, week 103. So it's between Blazing Saddles and worse than Blazing Saddles, but better than The Kid Who Would Be King.
Yes. And then a couple slots below that, I'm going to put Ocean's 8 between House Shark and After Earth.
Oh, okay. Better than After Earth, but worse than House Shark in the new number 20 slot. Ocean's 8.
Yeah, I'm going to have to send a message to those House Shark folks and let them know that, to me, House Shark is better than Ocean's 8, After Earth, Contagion, Glass, Possession of Hannah Grace, and Aquaman.
All right. Hit the old check mark. And going into my list, I'm going to put Mortal Engines. Oh, boy. Oh, gosh. I think I'm going to put it...
Sounds like it's going to have to go pretty low.
Yeah, I'm going to put it above Aquaman, but below After Earth into the 27th spot. Mortal Engines week 103. Yeah, number 27, Mortal Engines. Better than Aquaman, worse than After Earth. Ugh, that doesn't feel right.
Sounds about right.
Matt, anything to plug?
You know what? I don't exactly have a plug, but I want to send a thank you out to the ladies at Red Handed, because I had sent them a message. I Patreonized them, and I had sent them a message saying that, you know, if they had any tips, because their podcast has really improved a lot over their, 70 episodes or whatever. And they sent me a message back, and they said, you know, keep going, be consistent. Apparently that's really important, so we need to be consistent.
You mean not taking 2 months at a time?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Being a weekly podcast that's actually weekly. And they also said that if we have any questions about audio stuff, they might be able to say a bit more, which I might go ahead and ask them. I do happen to know from their episodes that one of the things they do to make the audio quality really good, is because they reference it a lot, that they're both on opposite. They're also doing it over the phone, and they're on opposite ends in like pillow forts. Like they have like blankets around them and stuff to cut out noise. Yeah. So I suspect that will be one of their suggestions. But I appreciate that they even got back to me at all. So
yeah, that's thanks,
really cool. Red Handed.
Red Handed, the podcast that you absolutely love.
I do. I can't get enough of it.
And if you're interested in sponsoring one of our segments on the show, check us out on Patreon. You can sponsor a segment like the Big Ticket sponsors our Preview Corner segment. Otherwise, check us out at thisweekinfilm.com for links to all of our everythings. And I guess if that's the end of the reel, we'll see you next week in film.
Bye.